Hey everyone, and thank you for tuning in to episode 8 of Study Bites. This week we are going to be harnessing our dyslexic strengths of storytelling and using pictures, and we're going to be sort of combining those so that we can help again learn about those different divisions of the nervous system. Now today we're going to be learning a lot more about how those different nervous systems interact and connect with each other. So storytelling is going to play a really critical role in helping us to understand and remember that content. So this technique was inspired by something that my dad used to do with me when I was little to help me learn how to spell. So what we would do is we'd grab all my spelling words and divide them up into their different sound or phoneme groups. So for example, we had the AIL words like snail, and we would essentially create a whole story or plot line around all of these words. So we had a snail and he was going along a rail and he got put in jail and he got a letter in the mail and he'd been posted bail, and this sort of story just went on and on and on. But now even as an adult, I think back and I think, oh gosh, how do I spell bail? And I think back to the story and can remember that those were the AIL words. So it's a really, really useful technique, and essentially all we're doing today is applying that same storytelling technique to our different divisions of the nervous system. So in step 1, it's a really good idea to go back to our mind map that we drew, just so that we can see all the different arrows and the different connections between the nervous systems. Now, because your mind map is made out of pictures, you're already going to start thinking about what sort of time and place we can hold this story in. So for me, on my mind map, I had a little information center symbol as part of my central nervous system, and that got me thinking about what sort of things have that sort of information hub. So I started thinking about a shopping center, I started thinking about a library, which I thought was probably a little bit too ironic, and then I started thinking about an airport, and I started sort of developing my idea around this airport. So in step 2, what I did was I would assign each nervous system a different role to play in my story. So some of them were people, some of them were objects or nouns, and then I could really start to craft how my story was coming together and how each object or person was interacting with each other. As you assign each central nervous system with a character or a object, it's important to also give those people and objects a name or a characteristic to help you remember what they represent in your story. So for me, I had a pilot in my airport who I called Steve Clark, and I did that because his initials, SC, also stand for spinal cord. So we have our story setting, which is our airport, and we have our various characters and objects that are going to be interacting in our story. In step 3, what we're going to do now is stitch that all together and create our plot line. So look back at your mind map, look at the different arrows and systems that are interacting, and think about how those characters and objects can interact in your story. Now this can be really time consuming for someone who hasn't thought in this sort of abstract way before, but practice really does make perfect, and the more that you do this, the easier it will get. One thing that really helps me to craft my story is to actually get physical objects in my house and move them around, or draw it out in a picture format on my whiteboard. So the final step is to, of course, tell your story. Tell it to your study buddy or to your family or to your younger sibling at night, or if you don't feel comfortable sharing your story with others, maybe you can record an audio version and listen to it back at a later time. The time has now come for you guys to sit back and relax and to enjoy my story, which is entitled The Adventures of Perry and Steve. So our story begins at Melbourne Central Airport, the most important airport in Australia. The air traffic controller is the brains of the operation. He controls all of the planes that travel to and from the airport and the various towns of Australia. To do this, the air traffic controller must tell the pilot, Steve Clark, which town to fly the plane to. Sometimes, Steve and his co-pilot Perry visit towns with different environmental conditions. Perry's job is to hop on and off the plane and tell Steve about any abnormal conditions in the town, for example, if it is really hot or really cold. Steve then flies the plane back to the airport and gives this information to the air traffic controller to analyse. One day, the air traffic controller told Steve and Perry to fly to Amsterdam to see the Anne Frank house. After arriving in the town, Perry got off the plane to look at the environment. Across the street, he saw a building with lots of sweaty people climbing up hundreds of stairs. They looked as if they were climbing up towards some sort of attic. This turned out to be where Anne Frank had hidden during the war. Fascinated, Perry went back down to the plane and told Steve what he had discovered. When they returned, Steve told the air traffic controller, who filed a report about their travels. The next day, the air traffic controller gave Steve a GPS, which automatically landed the plane in the woods of Canada. As per usual, Perry got off the plane to evaluate his surroundings, when all of a sudden he saw a bear. With his heart pounding, Perry was so scared that he froze. The next thing he knew, he woke up in the house of an old woman. The woman was very sympathetic and gave him a cup of tea. After he had calmed down, the woman explained that the bear had knocked him out in one parallel swoop. Thanking the woman, Perry returned back to the plane to tell Steve and the air traffic controller all about his adventures. The end. I hope you guys enjoyed that story and this study bite. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a comment, and we'll see you next time.